Okay, let's talk about homeschool math placement. And this video is going to be primarily directed for those students that are between 6th grade and 12th grade. But I might be touching a little bit more on some elementary grade levels as well. So the whole purpose of this video is to help you out, the homeschooling parent, determine, hey, what is the right math course for my homeschooler, okay? Like, should they be in Algebra 1, pre-algebra? Should they be in an accelerated class? Do they need to review, take this class over again, etc.? So this is a common question. It's a good question. It's an absolute, obvious concern for parents that are out there that are homeschooling. So hopefully, I'm going to give you some valuable information that can help you make this determination because, as you know, as a homeschooler, you are going to be responsible for these decisions, right? If your child's in a public school or private school, they will kind of be directed into, a particular level, but you have much more flexibility as a homeschooling parent. So you have to, really be that determinative factor on what is the correct placement. Of course, this is subjective. It's not 100% perfect science, but I'm going to give you some good information to help you, guide you along this path. But yeah, I think it would help if I introduce myself. My name is John. I'm the founder of TabletClass Math. I'm also a middle and high school math teacher. But over the last many, many years, I've constructed many online math classes, been uh, helping and serving homeschoolers for good 15 years with my online math courses in middle school and high school, primarily pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and soon pre-calculus. So, I've been working with these issues, and this is a common concern, common question that's come up all through many years. And I'm like, you know what? I just got to make a video about this and share what I think are some good guidelines to help you out. If you're interested in my homeschool program for your child, I'm going to leave a link to my learning program in the description of this video. But with that being said, let's go and get into this uh, topic. All right. So let's just take a look at, first of all, like the spectrum here of learning. Okay. So here we have elementary level, then we have middle school, and then we have high school math, right? So, and then obviously here is college or vocational training or military, whatever the case might be. So a lot of what you're trying to determine, what parents are trying to determine is like, hey, what's the best track? What's the right track? What's the right best thing for my child? Okay, now, you know, you could be, your child could be young. Okay, you could maybe they're 10 years old, but they love math, and you're like, okay, they're bored with their fourth grade math. Okay, so maybe you're got your child on a particular curriculum, they just, it's too easy for them. It's like they're bored and they're, let's say, 10 years old or 8, 9 years old. Okay. And you're like, should I, just jump them ahead to maybe a pre-algebra course that someone maybe, 12 or 13 years old is taking. So that's what really the essence of this video is about. How do you make these factors? Okay. Or, you know, um, should my child, take pre-algebra or eighth grade math? All right. So, these are all, issues that, you're going to have choices along the line here. Um, so, anyways, let me go ahead and just kind of focus in on, the first main guiding point. All right. The first main guiding point when you're making a determination uh, for placement is not to do anything out of the norm. In other words, unless you feel like you have to. What am I saying here? Okay. For the most part, okay, if you just follow the traditional kind of path, I think that works out the best for almost all, for the majority of students. Now, what does that mean? Okay, well, here you're going through elementary school. Your last year of elementary school is fifth grade. So let me go write this right here, fifth grade. So your middle school years would be sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade. and then you got your ninth grade year, 10th grade year, 11th grade year, 12th grade year. Now, for the most part, let's just look at high school. We'll kind of reverse engineer the path that I think most students should take. Okay. Now, of course, there are considerations where you're going to want to think about this differently, and that's what this video is really about. But for the most part, irrespective of where your child wants to be, whether they want to go to college or not, in ninth grade of high school, I strongly believe that most students should be at Algebra 1. Algebra 1, okay? 10th grade, they should be doing geometry, okay? And 11th grade, they should be doing Algebra 2. Now, I did a whole video, and you check out my homeschool playlist on my channel on why you want to take, it's so necessary to take geometry before Algebra 2. Of course, there's exceptions to that rule, but this is the path that, in general, 90+% of the time, you want to follow this path, okay? So Algebra 1, geometry, Algebra 2, and then that sets you up in 12th grade year for pre-calculus or, say, late statistics, okay, would be some good options. So this is a real strong path. So if your child takes, say, pre-calculus as a senior, well, that sets them up nicely, as long as they do well on their placement exams, to, as a freshman in college, to take Calc 1, okay, Calculus 1. And you might be saying, well, my child's not going to be an electrical engineer. They're not going to be a physicist. Yeah, but guess what? You can be a business major and still be required to take a semester of calculus. There's a lot of majors out there that you may not know of that still require you to have some, mathematics in it, even a semester of calculus that are outside of science, especially like in business field. So, but, for that reason, you want to, it's always good. This is a good target to have your child end their high school, studies of pre-calculus. And so it gives them the opportunity to be ready for Calculus 1. But let's say, no, they're going to be, an English major. They're going to be this or that. They're going to be liberal arts. Well, how do you know they're not going to change their mind? And they're like, you know what? Hey, I want to go into computer science. You don't know. I'm a parent myself. I've seen enough students change their mind. So this track here gives your child the biggest. It gives them opportunities to change or reconsider, right? And they can have different interests and whatnot. Now let's take a look at. Of course, I'm going to reverse engineer, so we'll talk more specifically about these other courses here. But you're saying, well, what if you want to push this up? Well, yeah, you can take Calc, what they call A and B. Basically, it's the same some first semester of calculus. It all depends on what school you're in and your situation. Very difficult to homeschool calculus. I would strongly suggest, just if you're curious about this, do not ever do a home study, of calculus. All right, I would say up to pre-calculus is fine. But in calculus, like first semester calculus, I would suggest like a community college course, like you need an actual instructor, that type of thing, okay? But like my pre-calculus course, when it's just about finished, is really, really strong. So, but here, if your child is going to take Calc 1 here, or AP Statistics, AP Statistics might be, well, that's kind of a different story. Let's just focus on calculus here. That means that they would have had to take in pre-calculus in 11th grade. You just back everything up here, okay? Algebra 2 in the 10th grade, all right? Geometry in the 9th grade. So they got to be in Algebra 1 in the 8th grade, all right? So it's not uncommon for students to be taking Algebra 1 in the 8th grade, okay? So let's just continue to back this up. So in the 7th grade, that would be pre-algebra. So in 6th grade, you could be, let's say, at a 6th grade math level. So I've taught all these courses. And typically, oftentimes, of course, every district, this could be changing as we speak, but oftentimes the way it would work is this. So everybody is taking 5th grade, pretty much the same class, with the exception of your accelerated students, and then they end up kind of in 6th grade. So 6th grade, the way we kind of done it at this particular district was at the end of 6th grade, pretty much saw, how people were progressing on tracks. So you can kind of break it up in 2 or 3 different tracks. Some of the students that were showing like, real strong math aptitude, and they wanted, we felt like they could handle pre-algebra, and that was kind of, where they wanted to go. They could go to pre-algebra from 6th grade to pre-algebra. But the majority of them went on to something like, say, 7th grade math, which was, not pre-algebra, but the next level. Okay, so this was definitely the majority of students, maybe like 70%, of the students. And then you had those folks end up in pre-algebra. Of course, you have some people that may need to repeat the course or do something different, but normally this is kind of where the tracks get broken up. And um, and so that was kind of the path. Now, those students that went on to pre-algebra, if they struggled with it, if it was too hard, then maybe they would drop down to 7th grade, etc. But nevertheless, at a minimum, okay, for high school completion, typically your child's going to have to get through algebra 2. All right. So, knowing that these are the courses your child's going to have to take Algebra 1, they're going to have to take geometry, and they're going to have to take Algebra 2. There certainly are exceptions, okay, but for the most part, this is what's going to be required for a high school diploma. Pre-calculus and statistics are kind of optional, but these are pretty much the next courses that a student would take after Algebra 2, or they could take some sort of like business math or general math. There's all kinds of different, if you needed to take 4 years of math for high school, you can fill this in for whatever. There's a lot of different type of the math courses out there, but this track here, Algebra 1 Geometry, Algebra 2, is really what you want to be thinking about, okay? And if you're on track right now to have your child, okay, I know this is getting kind of busy here, so let's kind of erase some of this. Um, what you want to be thinking about, whether your child's in elementary school or middle school, is you don't want them to be behind in 8th grade. You really want them to, they need to get their pre-algebra done at the 8th grade level, okay? If they're struggling, okay, in other words, if they didn't do well with 6th grade math and maybe you're repeating or whatnot, well, then you're gonna have to be like, okay, maybe they have to start their Algebra 1 in 10th grade because, maybe they have to repeat pre-algebra in the 9th grade, okay? But that gives you time, okay? But basically, pre-algebra is a good, I think, litmus test um, on when you need to take it, right? I would say really your target should be the 8th grade for pre-algebra. And you can jump from 6th grade to pre-algebra, okay? You can make that jump. Of course, that would put your child, say, in the 7th grade if you were going to do that. But you really want to be targeting getting that pre-algebra done before the middle school is finished, okay? And get your child on this track, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, starting, Algebra 1 in the 9th grade. And then, of course, you can kind of, tweak this as needed, okay? Now, what are those factors, right? So the first thing, the main thing is this. Do not deviate from this kind of general path unless you absolutely feel like you have to. So what are some situations where you need to kind of consider, shifting your placement around? Well, there's definitely, we would call, I don't even know if this term is used as much anymore. So you got like gifted and talented students, accelerated students, etc. So let's say your child is like, and they're like great in math. They're just love math. They really want to. They're excited about it. They just like, hey, I don't want to mess around with 6th grade math. I want to get into Algebra 1. I just want to jump ahead. And you're like, boy, what do I do here, right? Well, I personally have seen, I've had many people, I've had 5th graders take my Algebra 2 course successfully. And by the way, if you go onto my site in the testimonial sections, there's a book called, hope I'm not spelling wrong, the Brainy Bunch, like the Brady Bunch. But anyways, this is a great book. If you're not familiar with this family story, they actually ended up for one of their childs using my TabletClass program, and I didn't even know that at the time. And they wrote this amazing book. They were on like big news networks. I think they're like on Today Show, CNN, Fox, whatever the case is. But their children were like super young, and they got their like college degrees in engineering, doctors, like in their teenage years. I mean, it's just insane, crazy. And so the book goes into their story, how they what they did and everything else, and their kind of their children's stuff. If you take a look at that testimonial on my site, I think there's a link to their video. It's just a great story. Anyways, homeschoolers, right? So there is no rule, like hard and fast rule, like, okay, your child's, 10 years old, can they handle Algebra 1? Absolutely. There's many children that can handle that. So don't stop yourself if your gut is telling you, yeah, my child is, different. My child is like I think they can handle it. So if you think they can handle it, okay, and they've showed a strong track record, then you can definitely consider jumping them up one or two levels. Now, so I would say for gifted and talented, anytime you're thinking about jumping up, you got to have a track record of success. Like that's the first thing. Does your child have a strong track record of success? Okay. So you're talking about disrupting this track that works for most students. This is a good track for even strong academic students. This is going to put them in a good place to have all kinds of options for college. Okay. So, you got to have real good reasons to disrupt this track. So your child has to have a super strong track record, not just the desire. Okay, they'd be like, okay, show me the proof. Okay, for all these subsequent years that they've been like, awesome at math, and that they're just kind of bored with their current math level. All right. The third thing is that they really got to have the desire. Okay, do they have the maturity level to go from say ninth grade to say pre-algebra? Okay, in other words, do they have the academic habits, note taking? Do they have the discipline? All those type of things. So you got to consider that as well. Okay, so there could be a maturity factor. Some a student at 9 years old is different than a student at 13 years old. Believe me, when you you as a parent, I'm sure know, but as a teacher, you see like it's just like crazy. Like in sixth grade, you see the students they're one way. Seventh grade, they're like different. Eighth grade, completely different. So it's like discrete changes. So kids are growing up. They're developing along these ages, and then of course high school it's a whole other story, and you can kind of see the same changes there. But in other words, what I'm saying is the difference between 10 years old and 13 years old in terms of maturity and everything else. It's a big gap. So your child has to have the desire. You can't push them, all right? And they also have to have again the academic habits, all right, the maturity level, all right. I'd say the fourth thing is you got to be ready to make sure they have the right support mechanism. Okay, so are you going to be there, monitoring, checking, evaluating if this is a good move for your child? Okay, so these are some factors. All right, now in terms of jumping up, skipping one or two grade levels, I certainly think that if you're going to skip a grade level, you go maybe only skip one, all right? No more than definitely two. In other words, you don't go from fifth grade all the way to Algebra 1. That's too big of a leap because there is a lot of prerequisite material that your child needs to be learning. So if you're going to make a jump, all right, I would say jump no more than one year, right? So go fifth grade, you can maybe skip sixth grade into pre-algebra if your child, has all of that to them. And the other thing I would say too, in terms of placement, in terms of that, is the most important things in mathematics. The most important factor in learning math by far is the math teacher. Okay, the instruction. All right. Who is teaching your teacher? I mean, your child. Who is their teacher? Right. Think about your own experience. Okay. If you had a bad teacher, you struggle with that concept. If you had a great teacher, you enjoyed it and you understood it. So you got to find a great math teacher, a great program. And in today's day and age, there's a lot of options out there. Just do not, there's such a small percentage of students. There are some out there that you can just give them a math book and like, okay, go into your room and read that math book, and they're like savants, they can prodigies and stuff. Yes, but for the majority of accelerated students, they need great instruction. So make sure you have, you've kind of vetted out and evaluated, some math programs that would work for your child's learning style. Okay. All right. So that kind of handles, these are some things you want to be thinking about in terms of jumping your child in terms of placement. Again, you know, here, with pre-algebra being your kind of completion date or completion level at 8th grade, starting algebra 1, you can kind of tweak this around, with whatever course that you want. As long as you're kind of following these guidelines, then, then you'll be okay in terms of whatever you might do here, whatever course you might do. As long as they end up here, do not do pre-algebra in the 9th grade. Try to get this done again in the middle school level. Now, what about repeating a class? Okay. Um, Listen, that happens. Okay. If your child has not, successfully passed a course, this is getting really busy. Let me just kind of erase some of this. If they, struggled, let's take Algebra 1, for example, and I've had plenty of these kind of situations as well. Uh, so here, let's take 9th grade year. So your child takes Algebra 1. Let's say you put them in a program, a curriculum, something that didn't work for them. Okay. And this is a story that I see all the time, unfortunately. Student gets into the wrong program for them. Okay. They're in the right course level, but the wrong program kind of set up, and they're not able to learn for this. But guess what? They spent their whole 9th grade year struggling with Algebra 1, and now they get like a C minus or a D plus at the end of the year. What do you do then? Okay. Do you push them on to geometry? Well, that's a tough one. Okay. The bottom line is this, and I've made videos on this as well. Algebra 1 is such a critical course. Okay. You got to get this right. If your child didn't understand Algebra 1, they're going to struggle all the way through high school with math. Okay. Because everything is kind of built upon that foundation. And this, what I'm telling you, also can apply to pre-algebra. So pre-algebra and algebra 1 are like, when you look at a kind of think of the foundation of math in terms of what's most important. I mean, I would put like your pre-algebra, algebra 1 right here, because everything is going to build up, really on top of that. So if your child truly didn't understand pre-algebra or algebra 1, you're going to have to rectify that. Now you have some options, okay? First, obviously, don't use the same program. Don't put them again. Don't be like, okay, you're just going to repeat exactly what you did. Okay. No, you got to figure out what went wrong, and get them into another program. But you could have them repeat. Now, you might be able to do it in the summer. Okay. You're like, well, they failed Algebra 1 in 9th grade, so I'm going to have them do Algebra 1 in the summer, kind of make that up. That's always an option, and sometimes that works out. Here's the thing, though, right? Pre-algebra or Algebra 1, you're talking like 9 months. Like my course, 9 to 10 months. That's a lot of content. Okay. How are you going to, in 1.5 months, let's be truthful here, not 3 months in summer. You got vacation, you got all this stuff going on, breaks. There's no way in 6 weeks, whatever the case is, you're going to totally relearn everything. You're not. This is just a quick like review, like a Cliff Notes version of Algebra 1. Sometimes it works. It all depends on how much your child struggled with that course. Okay, but this is still kind of like a patch, all right, patchwork, all right. If your child really just struggled too much with Algebra 1 and just was totally lost, you really truly need to consider having them retake it in the 10th grade. Right? That's not a bad way to go, because again, let's look here, 10th, 11th, 12th. Here they could do their Algebra 1, they can do geometry and Algebra 2. They'll be okay. Okay, believe me, A lot of students go from high school into college and take something called college algebra. Many students do, maybe even the majority. And college algebra is kind of like an algebra 2 at the college level. Okay. So your child still will be okay. All right. Like they might be a little bit back. There's some other issues here that could affect them. But for the most part, they'll be okay as long as they can get their Algebra 1 successfully completed in 10th grade. And that way, once they really understand this, everything else will kind of flow from there. All right. But if you don't address Algebra 1, and you'll see it show up in pre-algebra. Okay. So in other words, if, I can't think of too many situations where a student has done really well in pre-algebra and then kind of flunked algebra 1. Okay, the only way that kind of happens is if, and this does happen, okay, where your child was in 8th grade year, they're academic superstar, they're at school, they're everything's great. Then they go to high school, and now they're a high school freshman, and there's just distraction everywhere. This happens quite frequently, but it's not so much because of their capability or their potential, their aptitude. It's because of the environment, right? They're in high school, there's distraction. So you'll know, okay, what's affecting your child's performance is then it's, because it would, if your child's struggling academically because their school, you'll see it show up in other courses. They'll have trouble in their other courses as well. Just won't typically be in Algebra 1. And by the way, that's something too. If your child is in school, some sort of classroom environment, of course, this is directed towards homeschoolers, but there are homeschoolers that use some classroom environments. Make sure you check with the teacher, see what's going on in that classroom. Is there disruption like that? Big. Oftentimes, that's what's causing the problem with your child learning a particular topic. It's not maybe the concepts and the topics. There's a distraction. There's something else going on. You as the parent are going to have to figure that out. Okay, so I can go on and on and on here. I don't want to make this video any longer than it needs to be. Okay, of course there's a lot of situations and special cases. Not everything fits into a perfect little set of rules all the time. But I think if you follow the main guidance that I kind of laid out, and let's just review this, is this, like the average track, okay? The first thing is this. Most people in 9th grade year are taking out Algebra 1, okay? And in 12th grade year, you can end up with pre-calculus statistics. This is a great track. Try to stay on this track, okay? That's my best suggestion to you. It's a safe track. It's been a proven track, and it works good for all students, okay? Now, again, if your child is accelerated, gifted, talented, whatever, phrase you want to use, I would jump no more than, say, 1 grade level, all right? Okay, I would not skip more than 1 grade level, and you better have a lot of justification to do that, okay? So we talked about, that there, okay? Like, hey, listen, that's a big deal to do. Be cautious. Don't do it because you want to do it. They gotta really want the desire, and then you gotta really be monitoring that. But it can work definitely for sure, okay? And if they can be on an accelerated track, and they should be, then you know what? You should not hinder. You shouldn't make your child be in a grade level that's not, it's too low for them. I guess that's the best way of saying it. Okay, so this could very well be your situation. There's a lot of students out there, and not man, definitely the minority of them that have to be in an accelerated track. So your child might be one of them. But again, you got to do your due diligence. And the third thing is really be looking at that pre-algebra and algebra 1, okay, in terms of your child's just got to know this stuff. They got to know this, all right? So there's no like, well, let's just move you on to the next level and hopefully it will get better. It's not going to get better, okay? If they don't have that super strong algebra foundation, their math problems are going to escalate. And you don't want to be, which I've worked with many of families of students that, they struggled with Algebra 1, they got moved into geometry, and now they're failing in geometry. And now they're down 2 courses, and they're juniors in high school, okay, or seniors and stuff. I've had to help families out a lot with that situation. It's, look, what I'm trying to do here is help you, the parent, okay? So you can guide your child. When you're homeschooling, you're the one that's making these decisions. And, sometimes it doesn't work out for anybody, well, what's what I'm trying to say. There's no guarantees, as sometimes students are going to struggle with math no matter what you do. Okay. So you can't feel guilty about that. But the more information and knowledge you have, the better you're going to be. Okay. So don't feel guilty. Don't say, oh, I put my kid in a bad situation. Oh, focus more on what you can do for your child, right? And get informed, and just don't just take my word for it. Go do other research as well. All right, knowledge is power. So the more information you have, the better off you're going to be. But let me go ahead and wrap up this video again. If you want to check out my homeschooling program, I pride myself on complete comprehensive math instruction. Super. I mean, I think my programs, my courses may have the most in-depth math instruction out there. It's taken me years and years and years to build. So hopefully you'll just, had this as an option. So it's tabletclass.com. I'll leave the link to that in the description. And if you have a special kind of, scenario going on with your child or transition, maybe they're going from public school to homeschooling, or maybe you got some unique scenario going out, use our contact page, our support page. Put in, your question and whatnot, and I'll try to personally get back to you and see how we can help you out, give you my best guidance. But with that being said, I definitely think that, if you're homeschooling, you made that commitment to it, do not change. There's so much power, so much flexibility, so much you can do with homeschooling. You can just be like, uber successful with this, but you're going to have to increase your knowledge of education. All right. So as you get better as a parent, in other words, as you get more informed, all right, work on yourself, you'll be able to better help your child. All right. Okay. So with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your homeschooling adventures. And I'm sure that's what they are, because I speak to enough homeschoolers through the years, I'm sure your life is adventurous, but definitely hope this video helps you out. Thank you for your time and have a great day.